Going live in 5, 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today's Power Hour on building business and finance professional capability. It's great to see so many of you join the session. We are expecting a few more, so I'll just give it another 30 seconds before we kick into the session. Whilst we do that, I think what I will do is just introduce myself. So I'm Chris Mills and I work in the School Resource Management Division within ESFA. And I'll just start with a small bit of housekeeping. Thank you. So please use the chat function to ask any questions during the session, and we have time set aside for Q&A. And do use the thumbs up button to upvote any questions. Today's session will be recorded and slides will be shared to attendees. So today you'll hear more about our recently published school business professional strategy from Peter Stopford. And we have two guest speakers from the sector, so Michael Lilly and Peter Collins, who have kindly joined us to share their experiences of engaging with our one-to-one mentoring program and our Level 7 qualification bursary scheme. And we have built in time for Q&A, as you can see on the agenda, for Michael and Peter, so please do put your questions in the chat bar. And it's 2 minutes past, so I think we'll start now, and I'll pass over to Peter Stopford.
Thanks very much, Chris. Can I check you can hear me okay, Chris? Seems like you can. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction, and hi everybody, just to echo Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll just introduce myself briefly. I'm Pete Stopford and I've worked in the Department of Education for the past 4.5 years now. Before moving to the department, I was a secondary school teacher and joined through the Teach First programme. I saw a job advert for a policy role in school funding, and it was about something I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, the school's national funding formula, which really jumped out at me because it was trying to make sure that we distribute funding on a fair and equal basis based on pupils' needs, and a large proportion of that going on additional needs, which I was particularly interested in. And over time, I became more and more interested in, well, once that funding's distributed, how is it used, and who are the people in schools and trusts who are most responsible for making sure it's used to best effect. And that's how I ended up where I am in the policy lead role for the school business professional strategy. If we can go on to the next slide, please. So why are we holding up this session and this subject in the Power Hour today? Really, it's in recognition of how fundamentally important you, school and trust business professionals, are to the education sector. As you may be aware, we government allocate roughly £60 billion, no pressure, to schools in England, it's rounded to the nearest billion or 10 billion, every year. And decisions that you make have a real and serious impact on the benefit that pupils feel from that money. Considering this, the department has a school resource management strategy which intends to support schools and trusts to get the best value from all of their resources. And something we were really keen on in the most recent version of that strategy, published in 2022, was that professionals across a range of roles, chief finance officers, chief operating officers, school and trust business managers, are put at the heart of the strategy, recognizing that what you do on a day-to-day basis and how well supported you are to do that is fundamentally important to the aims of the entire school resource management strategy. So we issued a number of surveys, primarily in 2021, have been checking in on those results thereafter to see what professionals were telling us about how they felt, what was working well, and what could be improved. And the 4 issues on the left-hand side are our high-level summary of consistent themes that came from those survey results. The professionals felt that there needed to be more recognition and value for school and trust business professional roles, more certainty around the future and what this meant for progression, and support for progression, support for workload and wellbeing challenges, which were acutely being felt in general, but also after the pandemic, and access to CPD, but not just any CPD, high quality professional development that will help you to progress in your school and trust business professional roles. Next slide, please. So, having received this feedback, we wrote and published in the school resource management strategy, the school business professional strategy. And this intends to support professionals in schools and trusts working in the roles, some of which I mentioned on the previous slide, in the following ways. Firstly, to have access to high quality targeted capability building. Secondly, to have opportunities for capacity to learn from peers and build strong teams. And thirdly, to check the workload is proportionate through simplifying requirements where possible, but also supporting you to work in positive, supportive cultures. And this is all in recognition of, as I say, how critical school and trust business professional roles are to not just good resource management, but indeed wider departmental aims too. And we put on today's session so you can hear from 2 people who have taken part in initiatives as part of this strategy to support, hopefully, their capability, capacity, and culture as well, and have an opportunity to ask questions of those professionals too. So I'll stop there and hand back to, I believe, Chris, who will facilitate the discussions with those professionals. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed today's session.
Thank you, Pete. If you do have any questions for Pete, he is kindly hanging around as well, so you can answer them. So again, just include anything within the chat bar for that. What I'll do now is I'm going to hand over to our guest speaker, Mike Lilly, and he's going to introduce himself and share his experiences of our one-to-one mentoring program.
Thanks, Christopher. Are you able to hear me okay? Yeah, all good. Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Lilly. I'm Chief Finance Officer at Stoke Education Trust in Peterborough for my day job. We're a 6-school primary trust based across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. But also on the side, I'm also a school resource management advisor, and as part of that programme, I'm also acting as a mentor in the Chief Finance Officer mentoring scheme that is currently available for people to access. So I'm here to talk about the wider programme today. And really, it's just to give you a wide overview and then give everyone an opportunity to ask any specific questions about entering in, being a mentee in the scheme. So that will be available at the end of my, when I finish speaking in 4 or 5 minutes or so. So who can benefit from the scheme, I think, is a really, really important question, actually. So any school business professional who has the sole almost senior responsibility for finance within their school or trust is actually eligible for the programme. And I think that's really important distinction to make, because I think lots of people, when they see the terminology of CFO mentoring scheme, might actually think, oh, is this for me? And sometimes with a name like CFO mentoring, you might not think that, but it really is we're talking about the wider conception of people in schools and in trusts who might need that financial support. Typically, the support is given to people who are the most senior member of the finance team within that school or trust. So it would typically be somebody who's a CFO or your lead school business manager within your school or trust. But it's also those who who benefit from a change in their kind of profession as well. So it's just people who have brand new to the profession or a brand new CFO. It might be people who have come in from outside and different sectors, but also it might be with people who are facing a bit of a change in their own work, i.e. they may have decided to move into a different area of practice within trusts. So they may have moved from the special sector, alternative provision sector into mainstream or vice versa. Or it may be for people who who've been in leading the finance function in a smaller trust who is looking to lead the finance function in a larger trust going forward. So you can see it's open to a wide number of people. It isn't a limited pool, so to speak. But as many professionals who are on this call will attest, I'm sure. And it's a question I asked myself when I got involved in it as a mentor. You know, do I have the time to do this? And I think this is a really, really fair question. You know, from the outside, you know, the mentoring work between a mentor and a mentee is a 6-month deployment. You know, we say it's roughly about an hour of work a week in that deployment. But you know, it's a very flexible thing that we can engage in. Way that the deployment will work is very much dependent on the mentor and mentee and those discussions that they will have right at the beginning of the deployment. So I suppose that's my way of saying to everyone, if there is a way to make it work, probably for anyone who's interested in accessing the scheme, as long as you have those open and frank conversations at the beginning. Certainly, the way in one of the deployments that I've been doing as a CFO mentor, we've taken a very much a batching approach. So we've done more intensively for a number of hours here and a number of hours there, and then there's actually been, you know, fairly slightly longer lead times in between in meetings, and that's worked really well, both for myself and both for the mentee involved. And one thing I think is really, really important to say, and you know, this ties in massively with the time element. Actually, for the mentee on their side, there isn't loads of paperwork to do. The mentor is largely responsible for doing the paperwork, but even that actually isn't particularly onerous in that respect. The documents that you will need to do are largely similar in lots of ways to what we might do understand as an appraisal document or personal development review at some point in the process. It isn't a particularly onerous one, I should say, at that, but that's how we approach it. From kind of, this is what we think we need to achieve over the 6 months, and then we review that as we go along in the process. So what can a deployment be about? And I think it's key to understand this is a fairly broad conception of the term CFO. As I talked about earlier, it covers many different roles within the sector. But it's also key to know it's not just about accountancy skills and that very limited conception of financial support. Actually, it's that wider conception of being the financial leader within the organisation. So one of the real key things you do at the start of a mentoring deployment or being the mentee in a deployment will be actually to self-assess yourself across 10 categories, which are financial planning, financial compliance, ICFP, use of benchmarking, leadership, risk management, asset management, procurement, and estates. So as you can see, it's that real wide conception of being a CFO. And actually, if you need support in any of those sections, the CFO mentoring program may well be a good program for you. And on the basis of that self-assessment, then that will be what you and your mentor will decide is the appropriate areas of the deployment for you guys to mentees to undertake when they are accessing the mentoring scheme. So that was really just a really quick overview about who can access the CFO mentoring scheme and the areas it can cover. And hopefully I've covered actually some of those points around what actually you can cover and get out of it by accessing being a mentee in the scheme. I don't know if anyone had any particular questions that they wanted to ask at this point, which I can answer.
Thanks, Michael. I'm not sure if there's anything in the Q&A bar at the minute.
Okay. Do we want to? I mean, that was kind of the end of the bits that I had to talk about, unless there's any particular questions. So, did we want to move on to the next slide and see if there's any questions later on?
Yeah, that works for me, Mike. So yeah, just if you stay online, and if any questions come in, then fantastic. We'll get the responses out to attendees, delegates. So,
okay, Krista, thank you.
Very kind sharing your reflection on being a mentor as part of our one-to-one mentoring program. We do have links on our gov.uk page as well, where you can register interest to take part in the program. and I'm sure we can post the links into the chat bar so you know how to access that. I will now just pass over to Peter Collins, who has recently done the Level 7 Diploma in School Financial and Operational Leadership as part of our qualification bursary scheme. So over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, really, what I'm talking about here is continuous professional development. For a bit of background, I came from a finance background and joined schools about 13 years ago. I joined a maintained school, took it from being a trust, to being a trust and grew it to a multi-academy trust of 9 schools. I then moved on to another MAT and doubled that in size. And now I'm sitting in a nice little empty MAT, which is an outstanding special school with moderate learning difficulties. Now, when I started in schools, it would have been really good to have a mentor like Michael sets out, because I've learned everything as I went along and surely made lots of mistakes, but I'm still going strong at this moment. To help me get through the difference between being a finance person and joining as a business manager, I went through all the local qualifications, you know, diploma in school business management, advanced school business management. And at the time this qualification came out, or it's like, it would be really useful for someone running a MAT or growing a MAT, because the modules within it are really appropriate to our role. It is still appropriate to my role as it is. I will be growing. Really, CPT, I've got a lot of grey hair. Well, I say a lot of grey hair. What hair I've got is grey. But as Henry Ford said, anyone who stops learning is old, whether you're 28 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. Now, I became aware of the bursary really at the last minute last year. I'd looked at this qualification for a number of years, and as Peter said, you know, you need positive, supportive people helping you. In my previous trusts, the cost of the course was seen as prohibitive, even though they were pretty large trusts or locally large trusts. So I was never able to get on it. With the bursary, it actually only cost the school £737, which by any states is really good value. The course itself is really good. It really gives you the opportunity to reflect on your practice as you are in your business now. I would imagine that most of the modules you will all have some knowledge on or understanding. Some you'll be experts on, some you won't be. The hardest element, as I'm told, was an element called the Certificate in Financial Reporting for academies. That's one of the things when I first became an academy I passed very quickly, so I was able to avoid that one. But if you're an accountant or have any knowledge of accountancy, it shouldn't be that bad for you. In terms of workload, and I know our workload is terrible as business managers, actually, you know, there are a number of days where you have these activities, and actually if you follow it through with a few hours work afterwards, you can actually crack that quite quickly. There's no expectation of reams and reams of writing, which came as a bit of a surprise to me. But what they were looking is for really good, strong, reflective activity on what you do. So I think it actually is a really good course to go on. With the bursary, it makes it really accessible for most schools. The cost, you know, has made it really good, and it's been really useful to me. I can reflect, gosh, I've got a load of years under my belt, but there are still things I can learn, which, you know, I'm sure you can all agree with that. I do other CPD, and I'll just mention that, but the bursary has been of value. You know, I've tried the DFE funded school resource management webinars through Entrust. They are good in their their own way. Some of them are good for new business managers. I'm trying them all just to see how they go. Networking is valuable. I know we're all tied to our desks, but going to conferences such as ISBIL, Skills and Academy Show, and there's plenty of others, gives you that opportunity to talk to people who are in a like position, because we can be in a lonely position as business professionals. And I also set up a local group in Norfolk many years ago, the Association of Business Management in Norfolk Schools, which helps us share best practice. And there is, you know, around about 100 people in Norfolk are members, and I'm also a member of the Suffolk Finance Network. So we have a responsibility to the pupils that are benefiting from what we do, and we have to make the most of the funds, what little funds we get. So, you know, I think anything we do to improve our practice helps all the children in our care. That's really all I have to say about it, but I think it's well worth, if you get the opportunity, to take the bursary and to take this qualification, because it will make you reflect on what you're doing. So thank you for listening. Sorry to take up your time, but you know, if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Peter. There are a couple of questions for you coming into the chat. Before we go to them, I just wanted to kick off with a question as well. So doing the qualification, did you have that sort of support and that buy-in from your senior leaders to free up and give you that time? And also with the qualification, that give you the flexibility, or it wasn't too burdensome in the sense of time?
In this trust, they will support me in almost anything. I mean, it's a really good quality, strong management that understands the value of the school business professional. I think I'm probably jaundiced in that some other trusts aren't as supportive. It depends who you work for, and I may well be wrong because I'm not working in other areas now, but certainly I wasn't necessarily supported when the costs were significant by other trusts. I think had I said I wish to do it here, I think they probably would have supported me because they see the value of the business professional's role. But I didn't ask that question.
Thank you very much. So we have a question. So someone has asked if you are an accountant or if you employ accountants and have the overarching knowledge in your current role.
I'm not an accountant, and I'm not great on accounts, I'd have to say. I'm a very good delegator. And
Chris, I might be able to add something to this.
Oh, right.
So I've also done the level 7 SIPFA course recently. I am a qualified accountant. I got great value out of the course because it isn't focused purely on accounts, although there are 1 or 2 modules that does cover that. If you're a qualified accountant, you are actually entitled to access to the practitioner route, which enables you to get exemptions from a number of the modules, which is a shorter course, so to speak. So you tend to focus on the more strategic modules. I got a huge amount out of it, and I'd already been working in education for a few years by that point. I think the way the assessments are done, with them being very much about case studies and you analysing your own situation and your own trust, actually was very useful. And I think that's what I got, for me, that's what I got the most out of it. And actually 1 or 2 of the pieces of work that I did, and ended up forming the basis of papers that actually went to my board to discuss some of the issues within our trust. So yeah, I think as an accountant, certainly, there's areas around, advanced audit, governance, financial planning and strategy in a very school specific context or math specific context, something that you won't have covered largely in an accountancy qualification. So yeah, certainly there are a lot to be gotten out of it for an accountant.
Yeah, I mean, the course itself, you don't need to be an accountant. You've got to pass the small part, but it's more about managing a multi-academy trust and your relationships with procurement, with trustees, with auditors, all the things that you have to do, and reflecting on that activity. So yeah, and my finance background, I'm not an accountant, but have a degree in finance. So yeah, it's not about being an accountant, and I don't really think I see. Do you have to be a CFA at a MAT? I don't believe that's the case either. I mean, it's about professional development, and I think if you can get on it and do it, that will stand you in good stead for your future careers.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions just on that. What someone's asked, actually, could you please repeat the name of the course that you undertook?
Mine is the CIPFA Diploma in School Financial and Operational Leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you can see the details on the ISBIL site if they want.
Yeah, we can post a link to the details on how to access that as well for attendees. Another question as well. So I was a CFO at a MAT, but we've moved to a maintained school that we're looking to create a new MAT with a number of local skills with the view that they'll perform the CFO role. Is this course available to them? I mean, I think I can answer that, and Peter's already done that in the sense of, yes, it is. Through our bursary scheme, there is some criteria. By all means, come off mute, Pete Stopford, if you want to go into some of the criteria for the bursary scheme, but this qualification is available to all. And like we said, there is information on the Institute School Business Leaders website.
Yeah, just to add briefly to that, Chris, that, yeah, I agree with your response. Of course, what's important here is that the course content is suitable for you and your aspirations, and this particular course is, as Peter says, school financial and operational leadership. So it's geared towards people who will be working in lead financial operational roles within the trust sector, as reflected in the content. So yeah, it's just important that it does meet your professional development needs. And as Chris says, there are some criteria around the bursaries, because of course this is a government-funded scheme that have to be met as well to receive majority funding for the course through the bursary scheme.
Thanks, Pete. I know you've answered this, but just in case anyone hasn't seen, they've asked us, is there anywhere we have a list of available courses for business managers and business professionals, and are there any plans to do this so we can easily navigate and signpost where there are training opportunities?
Yes, so I responded to that specific question with a link to the gov.uk SRM training and support page. This is our landing page to create awareness to all professionals about sector-led support, including qualifications, but also professional bodies and other forms of professional development and training. We have been sitting on an idea for a while of whether we should do more in this space, and for instance have a kind of more exhaustive list or spreadsheet of all of the available professional development courses. If anybody has strong views either way on that, I'd be interested to hear from you. But yeah, for now, SRM training and support page, but potentially more awareness we could build in future.
And also, I'll make a small plug as well. Any sort of future training opportunities, or where there's a new round of bursary schemes, or if we're expanding into other qualifications, just to stay up to date with information, not only on our training and support page, we also have a monthly SBP newsletter. And at the end of the slides, there is a QR code, which they've just moved to like magic. So if you sign up to that, you do get up-to-date information. A couple more questions have dropped in for Peter Collins. So, are your trust members and trustees supportive and appreciative of you and your professional development?
Yes, the trustees here are well aware of this professional development I've done, and I think even from day one I started producing some better reports for them, so that made it obvious I was improving in that respect. So yes, they're well aware. They've supported me. They've given me a little golden handcuff for the 750 quid, which is fine. But you know that they feel it's valuable to the trust, and we are intending to grow. So it just enhances my skills and knowledge.
Thanks, Peter. Another question aimed at you, Peter, and Michael
Yeah.
as well, because you've done the same qualification. Did you have time out in the working day to do this,
Yeah.
or did you do it in the evening?
Yeah, well, there was each of the modules had a day's training online. I started off trying to do it at work, but that doesn't work in a business manager's role, as you know, because your door is always open. So in the end, I did work from home on those days. Now, depending on how you are, I found in the end that just carrying on from that day cracked most of the reflective work that I needed to do. So yes, I had those days for completing the modules, and I did do a little bit of time in the evenings myself and tidying up when I submitted. So yes, so you've got to put a bit in yourself as well.
Yeah, I did a mixture. Attending the courses were, when they were in the middle of the day. Fortunately, I have a supportive trust and leadership team who have a flexible approach to development. We never had a formal agreement that I was doing one thing or the other, but it's kind of implicit in the way that our trust runs. But there were, evening work in there as well, and a couple of weekends. But largely, I'd say probably 75% of mine was delivered during work hours. But of course, you need a team which is supportive of that to enable that to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both. A question probably best for you, Peter Stopford. Is this course available via the apprenticeship levy? And if not, why? Is there anything you can add on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's a really good question, and I just noticed the live. Right, there we are. It's a really good question, and it's something we keep up with. We have under review at the moment, because it would make sense, wouldn't it, that schools and trusts pay into the apprenticeship levy, and you can use that funding to access courses like this. The reason why it isn't, at least yet, is that the broad apprenticeship policy approach has been to have like general leadership or finance qualifications funded through the apprenticeship that can be accessed by people across multiple sectors, as opposed to like an education specific finance, a healthcare specific finance, and so on. But with the growth in multi-academy trusts, there's potentially more of an argument that actually there is a real uniqueness in finance and strategic finance in this sector, and that's something that we continue to discuss with the Institute for Apprenticeships. Yeah, I would say there are some courses that are more so about either leadership or finance that are already available through the apprenticeship levy, including the Senior Leadership Management Degree Apprenticeship, which is at level 7-2. And secondly, there are a number of level 6 finance professional qualifications that, as I say, are not sector or context specific, but general, that are also available through the levy. And schools and trusts are, of course, eligible to use levy either through the local authority as the levy payer, or as the overall levy payer, or the academy trust.
Thanks very much, Pete. We've had another question as well from a new school business manager / CFO of a single academy trust. They've done the level 3 DSBM with Serco. Would the level 5 or level 7 be best at this stage? I'll bring you in there, Peter, but I think this goes back to what we said before around your own career journey and where you're at, your own responsibilities and remit to determine exactly what qualification would be best. But Pete, is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll actually also see if our two speakers have experience of the level 5 to compare to level 7. If not, I can speak about it generally, but guys, do you have any experience that you can share on the differences?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, either of you.
Okay, well, from my experience, I worked through them and worked my way up. Obviously I don't know Gemma's background and what skills she has, and I think it's probably best for her to look at the curriculums for them and for her to decide what would be best for her at this stage. I did the level 5 and enjoyed it, and I did a level 6 as well. But 7 might be appropriate if you're a CFO already and you've got experience behind you. So it depends on your own experience, I think, is the answer on that one.
I mean, I've not done the level 5, so I can't comment on that, but certainly having done the level 7, and currently acting as an interim CFO for a single academy trust, certainly the learnings from that are as directly applicable to a single academy trust as they are a multi-academy trust. Let's not forget the compliance requirements for a single academy trust are almost exactly the same as for a multi-academy trust, and therefore one would expect that you would have a similar level of skill set in order to do that. So certainly the level 7 and the learnings from there, I wouldn't put it off, I wouldn't be put off by the fact that you are at a single academy trust rather than a MAT.
And just one small detail to add to that too, I'd say a key difference would be that the level 5 diploma in school business management it goes across more of the professional standards, that is the Institute for School Business Leadership professional standards, across more of their competency areas, because that's the underpinning framework for what drives that curriculum. So if again you're working across multiple areas reflected by those standards, maybe more suitable compared to the finance, operational, strategic, more specific content.
Thanks all, and we've just had a comment in the chat as well. Someone's completed level 7 apprenticeship masters in education leadership via NCE, and they recommend it as a route to career development too, as it has some significant school business leadership elements to it. So thanks for that. I don't think there's any more questions, so thank you so much to all our speakers today and for the great questions which we've hopefully been able to answer. I hope you found the session valuable. We have one small ask. If you could scan the QR code or click on the link, which will go into the chat bar, then please do complete the short survey feedback form. We really do value your input, as these help shape, inform future AFP sessions, which leads me nicely on to, I think, the next slide as to what our next session will be. There we are. As if by magic. So our next Academies Finance Professional Power Hour is on the 22nd of February, and the session is on HMRC VAT, so partial exemption and its application to academies. And comms will be going out in a couple of weeks, I imagine, to register for that. So please do keep a lookout or sign up to the monthly newsletter to get that information. And then I do have one small plug. There's the newsletter code. So if you do have time, just scan it on your phone. That would be great. We do have a user research form as well. So if you're interested in being contacted to take part in policy user research for the school business professional strategy, then please do you access this link here. So I'll just pop this into the chat bar as well. And then, or Pete, if you have it to hand, Pete Stopford, if you could put that into the chat bar, the link to the form, then please do if you're interested in supporting our user research projects. That's it really from us. So just thanks again, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today, to all the speakers, and all I've left is to wish you all a lovely rest of the day. So thank you so much.